When it comes to success in motorsport and more specifically Formula 1, you probably think of some of the drivers with huge amounts of wins and world championships. Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher are probably the likes that come to mind. And sure, in terms of drivers, they are the most well decorated in the sport, although you'd be hard pressed to get any fans to agree on who the best driver ever actually is. In fact, World War III would probably be easier to solve. With that said, Formula 1 is of course a team sport, and there's one designer who well-versed fans I'm sure know is about to be brought up, and that's Adrian Newey, potentially the most successful man in Formula 1 history. Over the span of his career, he's worked on cars leading to 13 Drivers' World Championships and 12 Constructors' Championships. You'd be hard-pressed to find any individual with more success. But just how did Newey go from humble beginnings in a small English town to being a titan of the motoring world and causing current speculation and controversy? Well, it all started in Stratford-upon-Avon, a town in Warwickshire, England, where he was born to his parents, his father a vet working on animals, and his mother an ambulance driver in World War II. He would attend a school with some other motoring clout, being at a school called Repton alongside future motoring journalist and Top Gear presenter Jeremy Clarkson. But by 1980, Newey had graduated from university with a degree in astronautics and aeronautics. Words and subjects far too long for me to understand. It did, however, get him in on the ground floor of Formula 1, where he worked at the Fittipaldi F1 team. The car would not be designed by Adrian, however, and that was evident, as the Fittipaldi team as a whole was a bit of a failure. Adrian would move on to the more successful March team in 1981, after a brief stint as race engineer in European Formula 2. And in 1981, March gave him his first crack at designing a race car. Instead of the F1 cars we're used to seeing Newey put together, he would instead be building March a car to enter into the IMSA GTP challenge. And this is where you start to see that Newey might have had something special. A man who, instead of seeing a cow like this, instead probably sees it like this. With his magic aerodynamic vision in play, Newey's March GTP sports car won the IMSA title 2 years running, being a highly successful machine. So for 1984, he was thrust back into the world of single-seaters, this time building Indy cars. Yet again, Newey saw success in his designs of race cars, with his March 85C winning the 1985 kart championship, which is what IndyCar was called at the time. His March 86C would do the same, winning the 86 title and the 86 Indy 500, both of which are very prestigious motorsporting achievements. After briefly working with Mario Andretti at the Newman Haas kart team, no relation to the current Haas in F1 or that company, Newey was taken on by March Formula 1 team to be their chief designer, and would create the March 881 in 1988, which was surprisingly competitive, with the team managing a surprise second place in Portugal and scoring points here and there throughout the season. The next year, March became Leighton House, and with that change came a promotion for Newey to technical director. Things then surely looked good for Adrian Newey at Leighton House. It was on the up from last year, and with a shiny new job title, he looked set. Well, unfortunately, the team had slipped back over 1989 and 1990, with 90 providing just 7 points over the whole season, one of those being another surprise second in France. For this, Newey was fired, which he would go on to say he was fine with, considering in his words, the team was now being run by an accountant. And judging by how the rest of his career goes, we can probably listen to Adrian's opinion on that one. And it might also be the best firing of his career, because Newey already had another opportunity lined up, and it was a huge upgrade. A team proven to be able to win championships and provide Newey with a much better budget. And for 1991, he'd be at Williams. It's safe to say things started off well. Mansell was able to take a bit of a fight to Senna in 91, but the team weren't quite ready to challenge the dominant McLarens until 1992, where Williams and Newey built a car like no other, and Nigel Mansell breezed to a world championship that year, making British people everywhere not shut up about it until even this day. The next year, piloting Newey's FW15C chassis, Alan Prost would take his fourth and final championship. But things were not smooth sailing from there on out. In 1994, Formula 1 was bringing in some pretty big rule changes, which include banning the use of all driver aids such as ABS, traction control, and active suspension, which Williams had really held an advantage on in the previous years. So for 1994, although their aerodynamic package stayed very similar, without these driver aids, the drivers Damon Hill and Ayrton Senna both complained the car was tricky to drive. This led to Williams actually being a bit on the back foot to the Schumacher-fronted Benetton team, and we all know what would unfortunately occur at Imola that year, where Ayrton Senna would suffer a mechanical issue while pushing the car that sent him into the wall at Tamburello. Newey and the engineering team would of course be affected by this, and would even be investigated and charged with manslaughter in relation to Ayrton's passing. And it wasn't until May 2005 the investigations would fully be closed and Newey would be completely acquitted of any wrongdoing. This incident in a car he designed definitely haunted him for the rest of his career. By 1996 though, Newey still had his sights set on furthering himself and was ready to become a technical director. He wanted to move past that traumatic event, and so by the time Damon Hill got around to securing the 96 world title
and wins the Japanese Grand Prix, and I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.
Newey was already on gardening leave, ready for new opportunities. These new opportunities wouldn't present themselves at Williams, but instead at McLaren, where Newey was really able to get his teeth stuck into the 1998 car. And, well, it just showed. Hakkinen would battle against the now ever-formidable Ferraris of Michael Schumacher. But with Adrian in his corner and a little bit of Finnish speed, and Michael's leg breaking in 1999, McLaren would take 2 world championships back-to-back. In 2000, Hakkinen and Newey narrowly missed out on the championship to Michael. And for 2001, Adrian set look to join the Jaguar Formula 1 team, until internal politics over there led to him staying with McLaren, despite persistent rumours of Adrian wanting to leave the team. Over these years, McLaren remained quite competitive, with 2003 being the closest they got to another world title, this time with a different Finn in the form of Iceman Kimi Raikkonen at the wheel. But sadly, mostly due to the unreliable engine package, which obviously Newey had no control over, nothing came of these challenges. And after finally breaking free of McLaren, Adrian found himself on the way to Red Bull. From 2006, Newey would take on the challenge of the Red Bull team, and things started off slow as they do with any new team, and Adrian could only really begin to hope influencing the cars of 2007 and onwards. His influence over the Toro Rosso cars would lead to Sebastian Vettel achieving a surprise race win at Monza 2008. And when Vettel took on a role at the main Red Bull team in 2009, that's when things really began to click. Newey had pushed the car to the front of the grid, where the title battle that year came down to the underdogs of Brawn GP and the newly competitive Red Bull. Brawn would take the 2009 championship, with them really being able to capitalize on the double diffuser before Red Bull could. But from 2010 onwards, Red Bull took no prisoners. The team would take 4 world championships in a row, with superior aerodynamics to all their competitors, mainly Ferrari and Alonso, who I bet wished had Adrian in their corner to make that Ferrari just a little bit quicker, although I'm not sure it would make it stay out of the way of Roman Grosjean. When the regulations changed again for 2014, however, it wasn't all success for Red Bull. They struggled as the regulations placed much more weight on the power of teams' engine units, and although Red Bull would always be in a chance with winning at tracks that required more aero and less engine, they struggled to mount serious title challenges. Until of course it all came to a head in 2021, and Red Bull with a more competitive engine mounted a challenge to Mercedes, and Newey's car and driver came out on top of the Drivers' Championship at least. Interestingly, that year there was absolutely no controversy involved whatsoever, and nothing that could mean a completely different outcome. But let's just focus on the fact that from there, Red Bull haven't looked back, with Adrian and his team yet again showing just how impressive his work has been in this ground effect era. So now you know why Adrian is such an important man, providing Red Bull with such eras of dominance and proving himself at other incredibly dominant teams too. But what's been going on with him recently? Well, it seems after working with Red Bull for so long, he's ready for a new challenge, and that could be one of the most iconic challenges in F1, the one many drivers and team principals seek out to do before the end of their careers. And that's to help bring Ferrari back up to the front once again. Like Brawn and Schumacher and the others before, could Vasseur, Hamilton, Leclerc and Newey be the keys to success for the Scuderia once again? Only time will tell, and it looks like Adrian will need to take some leave from F1 before we get confirmation of his departure to Ferrari. If it does happen though, look out for the prancing horse, knowing what you know now and just how successful Adrian Newey really is. Please subscribe. If you enjoyed this in-depth look into Newey's history. Thank you for all the support and more is on the way. Goodbye!